Welcome to the Occupational Safety Leadership Podcast, episode number 258, with repeat guest Tracy Krieger. She was also on episode 191 and 228. So I wanted to have Tracy back because right at the end of episode 228, she left us with a little teaser about a incident 5150 and a shelter in place. And I really wanted to sit down and kind of peel back the onion on that whole thing because I had done some shelter in place for weather events, but I've never done one for a non-weather event. And I really wanted to understand this whole thing because quite possibly these are potentially happening out there. So let's just kind of talk about it and get things going. Tracy, could you do a little favor, talk about what a 5150 is, and just jump right into it?
Awesome. Thanks, David. Yes.
Mm.
So here in California, and we have called a 5150, where you call 911 and you ask for a police and also a mental health professional to come assess the employee that you are wanting to be evaluated to see if they're going to harm themselves or they're going to harm somebody else. So at one time, I had a job site where I got a phone call in the morning where my foreman says that a coworker told another coworker that he was hearing voices in his head, that
Hmm.
his girlfriend planted a bug in his ear, and that our company was going to fire him and the government was out to get him. Now, the general contractor on site and the crew all started feeling very unsafe because he mentioned a weapon.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so they needed me to come to the job site right away.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's definitely something that people should take seriously because it's all of us have been angry at some point, but once you start
Mhm.
really kind of piecing together, hey, there's voices, somebody planted something, almost like there's a conspiracy out to get me, to get that person, you know. It probably
Yeah,
takes a whole different level of seriousness.
it does. And I teach that it's a ripple effect. So when I'm doing an investigation and finding out this was not the first time this happened, that it has been going on for quite a while. The employee was homeless, he was on drugs. I also did interviews because I was told that other cops in the county were talking to him. So I went and interviewed them, and they said they've been working with him for 10 years trying to get off drugs. So when you're checking on an employee, if they are fit to work, we need to look at mental health too, not
Mhm.
just physical work. And this employee was crying out to a lot of people, and nobody was listening.
Mhm.
Nobody
Mhm.
did anything until he mentioned a weapon. And then that's when I got involved.
Right. So just out of curiosity, so the person was fit to work. So maybe their habit was not affecting their work life, or they did a great job of hiding it.
Well, this employee actually, I found out when doing the investigation that he actually lived in his truck with the dog
Mm.
and that he came to the job sites many of times, no showers, no food, struggling at work. And no one just said anything. Even the
Wow.
supervisor knew and didn't say anything. And that's when I teach that too. It's like silence is safety's biggest hazard, is when we keep silent. And we need to make sure that we are talking so we're helping people in need that need it.
Mhm. I really
So,
like that phrase. I want to see if I can steal it and use it in everyday talk more. I mean, that's really good.
oh, yeah, definitely. The more conversation we have and the more people use it and get out there, the better off we're all going to be because we're safety professionals. We all have each other's backs. So it's
Hmm.
not what I say, someone else says, let's all help each other out, because then definitely their jobs, you know, all of our jobs will be much better.
Right, 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 right.
And
So,
not just for them, for us too.
hmm, hmm. Well, yes, yes. So then in this case, the cops are now called, right? And then
Yes.
you go to the site and the cops are there. And then, okay, so pick up the story
Yeah.
from that
So
part
I
then.
got to the site.
Huh?
I did a little bit more investigating first,
Hmm.
talked to the general contractor, the employees, tried to find the employee that I needed to call 5150, but I guess the foreman sent him somewhere to why I was showing up. So it
Mm,
wouldn't be like awkward me
right.
asking people questions. So, anyways, after talking to everybody, I was there probably an hour. And then I decided I needed to call a 5150. So
Hmm.
you call 911, you say, I have a 5150, you give them the address. And so they bring out a cop, a mental health, and they talk to the employee. And they don't talk to the employee with me or anybody else, it's all by themselves.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
in this case, the employee just left. He was very pissed off, where the cop was saying that that's how I found out that other cops were trying to help him. And part of this situation was um, he didn't want help. And his work was suffering, his life was suffering, and he didn't want to do the 5150. So, and it got worse. So after that, we thought, well, he left. I still need to do the investigation and close it out. But during that time, I realized and I talked to the CEO, we needed to put him on administrative leave. Well, doing that, he became angry.
Hmm.
So he
Hmm.
started calling me like every hour, leaving very nasty emails and voicemails that this is all my fault that he's not working, and that he was going to find me.
Hmm. Hmm.
So what we did was we had to shelter in place, because now the girls in the office found out, and the company widespread now is finding out that this guy wants to get a gun to protect him, and this our company's trying to fire him. So
Hmm.
he and now he's on administrative leave, and it's
Right.
my fault.
Hmm.
So now we're like, okay. So as the CEO and his wife and me, we sat down and they decided we needed to shelter in place. We needed to lock all the doors. I put a picture of him on each door, so we knew if the UPS came, we could unlock it and let him in. But if it was him, because not all the girls know, 400 construction workers out in the field, they don't know their
Right, right,
faces, you
right.
know. So we did that actually for 2 weeks.
Mhm.
We had to lock down every day. Everybody brought their lunch to work, and everybody just pretty much sheltered in place every day for about 2 weeks till we could get this under wraps. And
Right.
it's kind of scary because he keeps talking. So we did have to get a lawyer involved,
Hmm.
just to make sure we were doing everything correctly. And we wanted to just make sure he was safe too in the process.
Right.
And so we offered him help. Again, he didn't want it. So it's really hard when we're trying to offer help, but we're not professionals in that. And so sometimes, as I've been learning about psychosocial safety the last 2 years, I did a lot of things wrong. And so we really just need to show up for the employee and say, I'm here with you. Not that we
Hmm.
have to fix it, but
Right,
we're
right,
here for them.
right, 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 right. So this is an area that I don't have much knowledge in. Could you go over a couple things that in hindsight you should have done differently in this situation?
Yeah, I think instead of putting him on administrative leave,
Hmm.
I think we should have just sat down with him, where everybody was trying to ignore him and be like, kind of not talk about it
Hmm.
because they
Hmm.
didn't know how he was going to respond. Instead of, we should have just brought him in, talked to him, had him feel safe, where he could talk and just say, we're here for you. How can we help? Where before it was, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do that, when he wasn't ready for any of that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So that's like a huge mistake that I learned, is we just need to sit with them. And if we sit in silence, we sit in silence.
mm-hmm.
Another thing I learned is definitely we got to speak up. Silence is the number one safety hazard, and we can't just be silence.
Mm-hmm,
So we
mm-hmm.
definitely need to learn how we need to speak up, when and where, and when it's a safe place to speak up.
Right, 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 right. Wow, that's because by your by your story, I would have thought that you did everything right, just because I don't know any different, So it's really good that in hindsight you were able to go back and say, well, let's look at the lessons learned. Let's look at
Yeah.
how we're going to go forward, because I'm sure that these are things that most safety professionals have not thought about. So I've thought about shelter in place for weather and chemical leaks, and I work in a lot of chemical things. So if a neighbor has a chemical leak, all that kind of stuff then. But I'd never thought about a mental health issue in the workplace. So,
Yeah. And also, too, that was before COVID.
mhm,
So I know with during COVID, we do have, I mean, it skyrocketed from 1 to 5 adults with mental health conditions. And so I'm sure many safety managers might have seen this during the COVID, season that we had.
right,
But yeah, a lot of, like you said, a lot of safety managers aren't trained in this. And this is what I teach. This is why I speak on, because I'm really passionate about it. Because not only that, but my son went missing for 86 days.
wow,
So he was at work. He's an attorney in LA and working 60, 70 hours, negative environment.
mhm,
And he vaped some weed and it made him go psychosis and made him missing for 86 days.
wow,
It was
wow,
very stressful.
wow. How about
Yeah.
that?
And then my daughter lives in Washington. She cried every day at work. They fired her.
Hmm.
I had to still go to work and then pass out flyers after work. So I'm definitely different at work. We bring our life to work.
Oh, yes, 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 yes.
So even if safety managers don't think that this is their wheelhouse or give it to HR, I think we all as leaders need to do this. We need to learn and we need to know how to um, take action.
Right, 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 right. I guess when I sit down and I think about it now, being proactive in anything is probably a much, much better thing. I can't think of a single thing I've ever solved by sticking my head in the sand and somehow it just magically got better.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. Because we don't know what's going to happen on job sites.
Right,
We
right.
Workplace violence is growing. We had 2 million Americans with uh, with workplace violence. So it's growing. We need to nip it in the butt, and everybody needs to be a part of it, not just HR. You know, everybody. Safety needs to know about it because it might affect you or your employees.
Right, 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 right. Hey, so if we can get back to the story, so
Yes.
you guys sheltered in place for 2 weeks. How was the whole thing resolved? Or that's something
Um,
that you really can't get into the particulars, of course.
yeah, I was trying to think because we did have it on an attorney at that,
Hmm.
but eventually he did not work there
Right,
anymore.
right.
Yeah. So I can't talk about all how that happened, but
Hmm.
he
Hmm.
didn't work there anymore. And we decided to revamp the workplace violence mental health program.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
developed that and retrained everybody. So then it's not just me taking the burden on for if this happens again, it's
Right,
everybody. And it's also good for the superintendents, the foremen, all of them to know because now they can see warning signs where we shouldn't have never got that far. We should have never got where the employee's saying, okay, I need a weapon.
Right, 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 right. That was going to be one of my other follow-up questions too, is that so it sounds like this had been going on for a while, and so it sounds like the person was not taken serious, of course,
Right.
until the weapon was talked about. So it must have escalated to that point
Yes,
then.
it did. Yeah.
Hmm.
And I think because he wasn't working well at the job site, he was not getting a raise he wanted. He wasn't getting promoted as a foreman. He thought he needed to get where he should be, and he
Mm,
wasn't
right,
because of
right,
his behavior.
right.
And so I think I call them small behaviors that impact the environment.
Hmm. Hmm.
So him living in his car with his dog at a job site where we really don't have pets at job sites.
Right, right. Hmm.
And it's over 100 degrees.
Hmm.
Like, what things sh- should it have said, hey, this is a warning flag? And it never happened.
Right, 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 right. So out of curiosity, did the company have a drug test and the person was brought on board, or they only went for they used to call it safety sensitive positions, like a DOT driver, like that kind of stuff.
The company only had it when it was um, an accident, you
Mm.
know,
Hmm.
then they did the drug test.
Okay, gotcha, gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha. So as part of when you went back and revamped things, was that something that you had talked about also? Either like initial or maybe saying there's what do they call it again? Reasonable suspicion that supervisors have, kind of a deal.
Yeah. I also started a new hire physical with a doctor in the area,
Hmm.
and they did do drug testing for me.
Hmm.
And we started a whole new program to make sure that they are fit to work
Hmm.
mentally, physically, and emotionally.
Hmm.
And one time, the doctor found out that one of the employees trying to work for us broke his ankle
Hmm.
and trying to get a job.
Hmm.
So if
Yeah.
we would have just let the superintendent say, "Hey, he's good to work, let's go,"
Right,
because
right,
sometimes
right.
they do, like Zoom, they do FaceTime interviews. Well, they didn't see that he broke his ankle and now he's going to come to a job site, and then that would have been a workplace injury.
Right, right, right. Oh, that is really interesting. I had never factored in a construction company would do a Zoom interview that they would
Yeah.
say, well, we need you to come in with show some competence because you're doing construction. I mean, that's totally different than office type things.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
I have so many stories. It's crazy. I've been in the field for 15 and a half years, and
Yeah.
it's it's a learning process.
Yes, 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 yes. Wow. Wow. So is there anything that you'd like to leave the audience with on just this kind of incident and the way that you tackled it and then the way you learned from it?
Well, definitely, if you start seeing warning signs, if someone is coming in to work off and on, they're not, every employee knows each employee the best. So if
Hmm.
something's off, say something.
Hmm.
Make sure you're addressing the warning signs before the ripple gets too big, and then now they're mentioning a weapon.
Hmm.
Make sure you're trained on this. Call me if you need help in any area. I've been
Hmm.
through it all.
Hmm.
And I will also be in Orlando at the ASSP National Conference. So
Hmm.
please come and meet me in person.
Hmm.
I'd love to talk with you, and I'll be speaking on Wednesday afternoon at 3.
Very
So thanks
good.
for
Very
having
good.
me.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
thanks for
yes. It
having me.
was really good to have you. We're just about out of time. I do have other things to talk about, but we're just about out of time. So it looks like I'm going to have to twist your arm and get you back for a fourth time at some point.
Thanks, David.
No. Thank you so much and have a great day, everybody.